Have you ever encountered this? You've decided to get healthy, you've planned out all the meals, you got the workout schedule all set up, and maybe you've even pulled together a partner to do this with to help with accountability. And then the other person seems to respond super favorably to all that you guys set up. And you're doing exactly the same thing as them. You're doing everything the same, but you're not seeing the results that they are. And I'll just say the quintessential example of this is when a husband and wife are doing this alongside each other. And the husband's just like getting along famously, and the wife can be left a bit in the dust. And I get it. As women, we get used to this and we think, well, this could be our hormones, or it just is perplexing to us. But I'm here to tell you that there is likely another very important factor probably at play in this example I gave you. And this is body type. And this idea has been around literally since the ancient days. But in the 1940s, Dr. William Sheldon, who was a physician and a psychologist, noted that there were general body types. And then he began to research whether there were psychological tendencies that correlated to these certain body types. And I'll just say science has not confirmed. Originally, they thought it was completely debunked, but science hasn't confirmed his ideas to psychology and body type very well, although the studies do continue on that. However, here's what has come about is science does seem to be able to correlate physiological tendencies. In other words, how our natural response based on body type is to eating and exercise, and that it has potentially quite a bit to do with the way our bodies are naturally composed, more so than just lifestyle alone. And, we talk about lifestyle. It's all about lifestyle. Everything's about lifestyle. Well, yes, lifestyle choices are important when it comes to health. But here's the thing. Knowing your body type can actually help you identify the specific lifestyle choices that will work best for you. So listen, this is exactly what I do with one-on-one clients. And when I start with a one-on-one client, the very first thing right out the gate is we do a quiz that determines a couple of things. We uncover the best way for them to eat and the best way for them to train so that they can get the results that they desire with their weight, their body composition, and most importantly, their health and their longevity. And it is in taking into account exactly what we're talking about today in this video. And what this video is talking about is a big piece to that customization that I do for the one-on-one client of mine. And the thing is, customizing your eating and training protocols and what I do for clients and to your specific bodily needs, I believe is the key to lasting health. In fact, I used to sit there perplexed for years. I was able to actually get healthy at times, and I knew the exact protocol that seemed to work. But the problem was I couldn't stay that way. So I was all over the place. And now I feel like I have all of the information. And today what we're talking about is a big piece to that. I already mentioned that is a big piece to sort of what was an aha moment for me. So let's get into it, what these are. So body types come in three basic categories. We've got the ectomorph, the mesomorph, and the endomorph. And I'm going to explain these thoroughly, but just knowing more about your body type is going to go a long way towards you being able to maximize your health and really setting out the correct or personalized process to getting yourself healthy and being able to stay there. Okay. And the basic idea behind body types is that, as we know, the body type, human body types are not just exactly the same. There's not cookie cutter. There's no one form. We're not the same height. We're not the same width, whatever. Each of us falls into a category of a body type that is distinctly different, then it has some distinct differences, but also has maybe some similarities to others. And there are some general similarities, right? These are generalizations. And of course, we know there are exceptions, but really most of us will fall somewhere into these three body types. Now, listen, since we're not uniform in our body types, and we can all see that, we're also, surprisingly, not uniform in our nutritional and exercise needs. So we already know that some of us must work much harder than others to not become overweight or to not gain weight or to even just lose weight. We also know people who seem to be able to literally eat anything they want and they never gain weight or they can't even put on weight. They want to, right? It doesn't seem fair. I get it, but body types are a physiological fact. So let's get into knowing what these are, okay? And you will likely recognize these types and also be able to find yourself primarily in one of them. Do we straddle? Yes, I think we do, but really be looking for where you most likely fit as I go through these. So the first one that I want to talk about is ectomorphs. And the ectomorph tends to be sort of long and lean. They're that long limbed person. They're maybe not visibly muscular, right? Some ectomorphs can be very thin, but, also don't have much muscle mass, or they might have just lean muscle mass, right? Ectomorphs also tend to have the most difficulty in gaining weight. So even ectomorphs who do kind of maybe carry some excess weight could appear sort of thin when in fact they're just missing some lean muscle mass. That could be it. So often when you see, think of the body, the typical body that is a long distance runner, those often are ectomorphs. They have highly developed muscle mass that's sort of amenable to long distance kind of exertions. Ectomorphs often don't carry excess weight that would sort of reduce their performance in those types of athletics. Other ways to identify an ectomorph: they might have trouble getting jeans that fit them well because they're just not shapely. They're maybe straight up and down pretty lean. Their forearms could be on the smaller side. In other words, their bone structure is pretty small. Their body tends to stay skinny just by default in general, kind of that long and lean look. And if somebody has trouble gaining weight in terms of muscle mass or just putting any weight on in fat, often they're going to be an ectomorph. All right. Let's move into the second one, and then we're going to talk about the specific diet and training protocols for each one. But I want you to be thinking about, what do I mostly fall into? So the next one I'm going to talk about is mesomorph. Now, I'm a mesomorph, and you might be able to pick some of these things out, okay? Mesomorphs find it relatively easy to build muscle mass. They're kind of medium boned and more evenly built. Mesomorphs generally will say, well, I know how to lose weight, but I can also gain weight easily. And they can build muscle pretty quickly. And we're talking about stature. Mesomorphs may have sort of a long kind of torso with more compact limbs, okay? It's natural. This is a body that's naturally built for sports, and specifically sports that, require explosions of energy and speed. So the muscle characteristics of mesomorphs basically have a high percentage of these fast twitch fibers that release energy quickly. Triathletes often are mesomorphs, by the way. But the challenge for a mesomorph is to balance building lean muscle against a tendency to gain weight. So when I'm talking about me, I have to be careful that I'm not just building muscle, because I'll just also gain weight if I'm not careful. It won't be lean muscle. There'll be fat around the muscle and I'll just look stocky, okay? So you're a mesomorph if maybe your fitted jeans feel kind of snug around your bottom. Your forearms are moderately thick, right? You have you're getting the idea that this is kind of a moderate or medium deal. Your body tends to have kind of be muscularly lean or regular, and maybe looks rugged or squarish in shape. And then you can either gain or lose weight if you put your mind to it. You can do that. All right. So this is a mesomorph. So we've talked about the ectomorph and the mesomorph. Ectomorph is long and lean. Mesomorph is sort of medium. And let's go into the endomorph. Now, endomorphs have a larger bone structure. They tend to be built a little bit more stocky or have curvy bodies. So if you're somebody who has kind of natural curves, pretty curvy, especially as a woman, that's usually how that plays out as a woman. You may be an endomorph. Endomorphs tend to store fat and have a harder time losing weight. They're often considered stocky or full figures. Endomorph types have a difficult time keeping body fat off. They might lose it. They have to work really hard, but then they can't easily keep it off, right? And surprisingly, there are athletes, a lot of athletes are endomorphs. So you can't go based on that, but these may be sort of more active athletes. But because they tend to gain weight and hold on to weight, they have to end up paying attention to their diet and their exercise more so than the other body types. So what does that mean? Your forearms and your wrists might be a little thicker, so you have maybe thicker bone structure. Your body may tend to carry some extra fat kind of by default, like if you did nothing, that's what would happen. Your body might look round and soft. Again, you can potentially gain weight pretty easily, but have to actually work at it to actually lose. So hopefully you were able to identify, as I mentioned, those three types, identify one that you primarily fall into. And it's really important for you to take an honest assessment of your physiological appearance and attributes and wander back through that if you need to, or look things up. But like anything else, there are exceptions. The types are really categories, and some of us are going to fit pretty neatly into a certain category, while we might actually have some tendencies toward another. Just getting a general idea of your major body type and learning how to personalize your health and fitness protocol is really what we're after here. So what do? If you've identified which of these you primarily fall into, what do you do with that information? So let's talk about diet and training for each body type. So we started with the ectomorph, the long and lean people. Ectomorphs can often afford not to worry too much about diets. They have the luxury often to be able to eat whatever they want without seeing any adverse effects on their diets. However, since they do or can have difficulty gaining weight, they actually need to make sure that they pay attention to their protein intake and ensure that what they're eating has both enough protein and enough healthy fats. So the tendency to be kind of thin can work against an ectomorph when it comes to building muscle and maintaining your energy level. So if you are that person, you have to really focus in on eating protein and healthy fats. Now, what do you do for exercise there? So somebody as an ectomorph tends to have a slighter build, and this can make them more susceptible to injury. So, of course, if you have less muscle mass, you can also kind of lack the power and energy for intense weight training. So you want to really pay attention to building strength through resistance exercise to build muscle and ensure sort of protective tissue is surrounding your muscles. All right, now if you identified yourself as primarily a mesomorph, this body type can easily maintain health and fitness really by just kind of evenly balancing protein, fat, and carbohydrate needs. These are your macronutrients. Mesomorphs really want to focus in on balancing those three, because any one of them, kind of an overload of any one, can just end up being too little or too much. And for those specifically who are training, a mesomorph is training for, say, endurance sports, also wants to make sure they're getting enough carbohydrates for that energy. As far as types of exercise, a mesomorph wants to really focus on moderate to intense training schedules. Mesomorphs tend to be particularly well suited for things like high intensity interval training or HIIT workouts, where there are short bursts of intense exercise that are kind of balanced with more restful exertion. So you can do that low income steady state cardio and in between some high intensity intervals. Okay. So again, kind of that middle of the road, right? Now let's go into endomorphs. And endomorph can resist their sort of natural tendency to gain weight by maintaining very strict balance of macronutrients. And again, those are fats, proteins, and carbs. This is another thing I work with one-on-one clients. We identify exactly what your breakdown of macronutrients would be for not just your body type, but for your current health landscape, where you are currently, what could be impacting your metabolism and all of those things. But anyway, so endomorphs need to be a lot more strict and making sure that they're taking in their macronutrients with strict ratios and in moderation. And then when we get to exercise, endomorphs are just another body type that's going to do great with things like high intensity interval training or those HIIT workouts, because that has some intense bursts to burn calories with more sustained exercise. And that is going to do endurance for them. So they're going to be building muscle mass while they have sort of an endurance situation going on or build. Body weight training or weight training in general is another exercise super well suited for endomorphs. If you're an endomorph who you want to do some sort of endurance thing like a big long marathon, then you are absolutely going to want to do weight training in addition to that endurance training. Okay, so again, hopefully you were able to sort of pick out what body type you fall into. And when you heard about the training and eating protocols that made sense to you, it's pretty simple. And the biggest thing is you really must take an honest assessment of your sort of physiological appearance. And one thing that I definitely find is that people sometimes aren't perfectly honest with themselves about this. All right, so hopefully you were able to identify which one of those categories you primarily fall into. And listen, learning to identify your body type really just requires that you take a pretty honest assessment, again, of your physiological appearance and some of the tips that I mentioned. And you might even ask somebody. I will just tell you that I have a lot of one-on-one clients who miscategorize themselves because they think, oh no, I gain weight so easily. But the thing is, they don't know. They only know their scenario in general. They don't realize that other people may, gain weight way easier than them. Or so it's really easy to sort of miscategorize yourself if you're not being super forthright or getting input from other people. And again, if you're interested in getting analyzed for that, we can talk about that. So just reach out to me. I can help you run through that quiz and we can figure out most likely where you fit here. And the importance of doing this, of really identifying your type, is because most of the information in the diet and fitness world, it really comes with one sort of uniform set of guidelines, right? It's that often that one size fits all. And it makes it way easy to believe that if we all stick to the same set of guidelines, we're all going to have the same results. Now, we know that generally doesn't happen. The fact is, we're all different. Our body types are different. How our physiology works is slightly different. And those differences do turn out to fall into these clear kind of categories. Body types can account for many of these differences. And those three distinct types have shown to respond super well when the eating and training is addressed in this customized fashion. And each body type really needs to pay attention to things that are specific to their body type. We know what is right, safe for, and works really well for an ectomorph isn't going to be working real well for somebody who's an endomorph, right? So make sure that your health coach or your personal trainer understands this concept of body type and is going to be able to set you up for success by working with your body instead of against your body. Right? That's it for this one on body types. See you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe below if you want to get more valuable information, which I know you do. Okay, bye.